All right, we are going to make a pet-themed Valentine's Day wreath in non-traditional colors. So here is the sign that we're going to use, and we're going to use a 12-inch frame, and we're going to add our own ties. We're going to add 12 ties to this. As you can see, I've already started here. So since this is a frame that didn't come with ties, I'm going to show you what I did. Walmart has clearance right now on their Christmas stuff. And this is tinsel. It's upside down, sorry. It's tinsel garland, 5 yards. And this is perfect for making the twist ties on here. So for this 12-inch frame, we're gonna do 12 ties. And I cut them at 10 inches. I already have the rest of them pre-cut here. I'm gonna show you how I assemble. So for the inner ring, I attached them to each crossbar, as you can see here. And I wrap them kind of around each side so it doesn't scoot and move, it holds it steady. Then I'm gonna take the other 6 and I'm gonna come in this outer section, these outer 2 bars, and I'm gonna wrap this piece around and twist it tight. Now be careful not to pull it too tight. As you see, I kind of bowed the frame a little bit, but you know, you want it tight enough where it doesn't scoot around, but not too tight that you break your frame. Now, one tip I want to give you when you're tying these on is be mindful of where you're making that twist. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to zoom in for you here a little bit and show you what I mean. All right, let me get my cursor out of the way here. So when you're tying this on, you don't want to tie it up to the top. You see right here, I would be twisting and it's up to the top. That's going to make your poof ride to the center. If you tie it out here, your poof is going to ride to the outside. So when you're making that twist, to twist this on, make sure it is in the center of those 2 bars. That way your poof or ruffle or whatever method you're doing is going to have the proper placement. So in the center of each one of these crossbars, we're going to add these ties. So I'm just going to go around and finish adding these twist ties. Again, this is from Walmart Christmas clearance. It's tinsel garland in the 5-yard rolls. And I cut these pieces at 10 inches. And we're adding 12 to this 12-inch frame. 1 on each crossbar on the inner and 1 in the middle of the outer. Now, we are using 10-inch mesh that we're going to cut at 30 inches. Now, I've done most of them already before I started. I'm going to cut a couple for you. I just measure down to 30 and I cut. Now for a 12-inch frame with 12 ties, you will use this whole roll. You won't need a second roll. But if you're doing this method on a 15-inch frame, you're going to need a roll and a half to do these 30-inch cuts. Oh, I need a new cutter. All right, so here's all I had left. We used every bit of it. It is a combination of curl and a ruffle. And I use, well, this is like a photography backdrop clip, but you can use a chip clip or a, what are those, laundry clips, clothespin, whatever, you know, to help your hands hold. So we're going to follow the natural curve of the mesh, roll it a couple of times on this end, and then clip it in the middle, just like that. Then swing it around, locate your other end, do another curl, roll it a couple of times. Then this is going to be easier because it's got the lines, so you can eyeball kind of where the center is, but you want to locate the center and just start pinching between your index and finger and thumbs to form a ruffle. So here is what you get. You get a pretty little ruffle with some curls. We're going to start on the outside, so just pick a tie and lay it in. Pull your stems opposite each other, you know, pretty firmly, and give it a good couple of twists to secure your mesh to the frame. And then I always go back and fluff just like that. So again, following the natural curve of your mesh, just roll it on one end a couple of times, 3-4 times, clip it in the middle to hold it, swing it around, and then roll your next end a couple of times. With your index fingers and thumbs, locate your center, and then just squish it, pinch it in, creating a ruffle. So very pretty. So we're just going to keep forming our ruffles until we fill up our whole base. This mesh came from Trendy Tree, I believe. I've had it probably, I don't know, a good 9 or 10 months sitting on my mesh shelf, not really sure what I wanted to do with it. And I was in here earlier putting supplies away for Christmas still and organizing, and I saw it and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna make something non-traditional for Valentine's Day with this perfect sign that I've had also for a while. This wreath will fit behind a screen door or storm door as well. So if you've got a customer or a family member that, you know, just doesn't have the space for a big fluffy full wreath, well, this is the perfect way to make it. So now that we finished the outside, we're going to transition to the inside. The wreath frame is a 12-inch frame, and the mesh is cut at 30 inches. If you cut it any shorter to do this technique, I just don't think it lays as pretty because you need enough length to get 2 good curls on each end and, you know, a substantial ruffle in the middle. So if you cut it any shorter, I wouldn't go any shorter than 25. So for a 12-inch frame like we're using, you will use a whole roll. If you're going to do this method on a 15-inch frame, you will need a roll and a half. All right. And I try to make the curls a little loose. I don't want them super small and super tight. The blue is a navy kind of, and then the stripe part is an off-white kind of cream colored. You kind of have to move mesh out of your way. That's okay. Sometimes my twist ties get lost, so I just have to move things around till I find them. I got 2 more pieces. This is perfect for nursing home doors, RVs, any place that you don't have room for the big fluffy ones. This is perfect and still packs a punch. Oh, I got that one a little lopsided. I need to move it over. The good thing about mesh, if it's not laying right, take it out and readjust. All right, so here we go. It is from edge to edge about 22 inches, 21.5 to 22 inches. So that's not too bad. Now we're gonna place our sign. Now, there are several ways that you can put pipe cleaners on here to attach it to your frame. Since this one had a thick back, and I know that my staple won't poke through, I stapled a pipe cleaner a couple of times to hold it really sturdy, and I did top and bottom. You can use cable tie mounts if your sign is thin, but if you're going to use cable tie mounts, I would reinforce it with some E6000 or something and let it set up before I used it. So I'm going to look here in the camera, as you can see the whole base, and kind of find where I think the sign would look the best. Now, since we've got a funny looking area right down here, I'm probably going to put a bow here to kind of mask that. Now, not all the time, but more times than not, you're going to have kind of a wonky side to your wreath base. And that's usually where you will put something to cover it, like the bow, or you could put the sign over it, or some other type of embellishment. But for today, that's going to be where the bow goes. So keeping that in mind, now we need to figure out where we're going to place our sign. So since I'm going to put the bow kind of not down here on the edge, I'm going to make sure it sets up top right here. I'm going to put my sign a little higher. About right there, I think. You know what? I should probably put the ribbon on first. See, I'm getting ahead of myself, y'all, because I haven't done this in so long. All right, I pulled several ribbon, and I wasn't sure which ones I was going to use. It always helps when I get the base made, and then I can compare, you know, the ribbon patterns to how my base looks. So for sure, I'm going to use this 4-inch polka dot, but I'm only going to use it in the big bow that I put here. I'm not going to use it for tails. And the reason being because this is a smaller wreath base, and this will take up a lot of real estate. So this is okay to use in tails for a 15-inch or larger base, but for this smaller one, I'm not going to use the 4-inch. Let me get this full holder to my Pro Bow, because this is how I typically measure my ribbon. Actually, no, we're going to do 12-inch tails. What am I thinking? I do 14-inch tails on 15-inch reeds, but this 12-inch, we're going to do 12-inch tails. So, which ones should I use? Bum, bum, bum. I like the polka dots in 2 different sizes. This is Swiss dot, and that's a little bit bigger. So I like both of these. We've got our paw print, but again, it's only going to go for the bow. So we're going to set it to the side. And then I'm thinking, I don't know. That one looks kind of pretty. But when I'm choosing ribbon, I want to take into account that I kind of want it to be unisex, for lack of a better way to describe it. I don't want it to be too feminine that way I'm limiting my audience, you know, the possible people who may purchase this wreath by the owners who only have female dogs. But then if I make it too masculine, then it kind of limits it to being a boy, you know, pet wreath. So maybe this kind of frilly isn't the best one to use for now. Now these two are not wired ribbon, so I am probably just going to use this really thin, that's bad focus job there. This really thin, I'm probably going to put a couple of pieces of this in the bow. So I'm talking y'all through my thought process, y'all. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cut a piece of each one, and we're going to play with it a little bit. So we're going to do 12-inch tails. If you do them any longer on this wreath, they're going to be floppy on the outside, and you'll have to resist the urge to trim them. So we're just not going to do that. All right. To finish the edges of your ribbon, we do what's called the dovetail or the V-cut. You take your ribbon, you fold it in half. From your folded point, you're going to cut down like this. And that creates a nice V detail to finish off the ends of your ribbon. So we've got those two. We're going to do some Swiss dot, because I just love Swiss dot. And again, we dovetail. You could cut it on an angle as well. You don't have to do a dovetail. It's just one of the many ways to finish your ribbon. So I take both of the selections. I've paired a 2.5 inch and a 1.5 inch. I fold them in half to find my center, and then I squish and pinch on that center. We're going to start with the outside. And open a tie. Give it a good couple of twists to secure the ribbon into your tie. All right, I really love that combination together. So we're going to stick with that. And then this, we're going to choose one of these. I think we're going to go with the quatrefoil print. It's a little less feminine than the lacy. And this doesn't have to be a Valentine's wreath. It can be an everyday wreath, but because it had the heart with the paw, I thought we could totally turn this into a Valentine's wreath as well. So again, we put the 2.5 inch and the 1.5 inch together, fold it in the middle to find your center, and then you pinch on that center. Okay, then you'll go to your next tie, lay it in, and straighten your ribbon. All right, so now that we've figured out what ribbon pairings we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting all the ribbon at once. So bear with me for a minute. We need 12 total pieces, but since we're doing every other tie, we only need 6 pieces of each color. All right, so let's do the dovetailing. I'm going to put 3 pieces together at once. It dovetails and goes a little faster that way. All right. Last 2, and then we can finish up putting our tails in. All right. Now we paired the big dot with the quatrefoil and the stripe with this. All right. So now we're just going to finish. Fold them in half to find your center, then pinch. I was going for non-traditional today. Something that you can use for Valentine's Day, but also year-round. When I'm doing tails, the standard rule of thumb that I follow is to pair a 2.5 inch and a 1.5 inch. You can use 2 of the same size, but visually, I just feel it looks so much better with the varying sizes. All right, now we're going to go to the inside and finish up our tails. I always make sure I take the time to have my tails laying just so. Wonky tails can really make or break the end look of your wreath. Again, these are 12-inch tails. Our wreath frame is 12 inches. We have 12 ties on it. And I cut the mesh into 30-inch strips. All right. And as you can see, we've got a little bit of a gap here where, you know, things didn't lay just as I'd want them. So that's where we're going to put the bow, and you'll never know it was there. All right, so here is the fluffy base. See how it's not super, you know, full and poofy. And from tip to tip, we're now at about 23 inches. So it's still going to command a presence on a door. All right, now we're going to put our sign. Now, I will say before I do that, the ends of your twist ties here, you can do a couple of things with them. You can cut them off short and fold the pokey edges down in. You could curl them around your finger or a pencil and just leave them as curly cues. Or you could just, you know, leave them like they are. Because I kept these short, they're not sticking too far out, and you can just use them as part of your design. So since we're going to put the bow here, we're going to put the sign a little on the high side, probably right about there. So I'm going to come underneath and locate that inner ring. And we're going to tie off. And I don't tie it too tight to start with. I just kind of lightly tack it on until I make sure I've gotten placement right. And then I'll go back and tighten it down. All right, I think that'll work. All right, I think that'll be fine right there. Now, if you squashed any of your mesh, you can pull it out from around it, around the sign, and straighten your ribbon. Now I'm going to tack down the bottom just a little bit more so my sign doesn't get all floppy. All right, so now we're going to do the big bow. So remember I said I have the big dot in 4-inch. That's what we're going to start with. So I'm going to do a 16-inch tail. I'm going to squish. And we're going to do, let me see, 14, how that looks. Yeah, we're going to do a 14-inch loop. I don't think those look, yeah, that one's a little shorter. All right, so then I use my Bowdabra to hold my loops until I'm ready to assemble the whole bow. Some people who don't have achy hands don't have to do this, but I do, because I can't hold the whole bow. My hands will give out on me. All right, so that's the bottom of my bow. Then we are going to use some of the same ribbons that we used in here in our bow as well. So I'm going to use the stripe next. And then we're going to put in some of the dog paw, which we didn't put in the whole thing. I didn't want a whole bunch of this in the tails because I want the sign to be the focal. And if you were to put this in your tails, it's going to detract from this. So a little bit of this in the bow will be all you need. You find the bow holder pretty much at any craft store. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them at Hobby Lobby. I'm not sure if Michael's has them. I've never really looked there. But pretty much any craft store should have them. And they're under $10, I think. They're not real expensive. So 14 inches. Oh, what am I doing? I forget how I'm making my bow. And we're not going to use every ribbon that we used in the tails. We're only going to use a few. Now, we used the 2.5-inch big dot in the tails, but we're going to replace it with the 4-inch. All right. All right, then we're gonna pull in, I think, this one next. I always measure my tails a little long. That way I can trim them to varying lengths. Well, isn't that nifty? This is almost a two-sided ribbon. It's really hard to tell which was which. So we're going to go down to 13-inch loops on this one. just an inch smaller than the others. I'm just going to eyeball the next two because I can measure them by the last loop. And then we trim a tail. And we're going to put the Swiss dots on top. Actually, I think we're going to put in some of this. This is not wired ribbon, so it's just going to hang. We're going to do 16 inches. And I'm going to cut it on an angle just to finish the ends a little bit. And we're just going to lay it in there. Just adds another touch. Then we'll come in on top with our Swiss dot. The sign came from Hobby Lobby last year, though. I'm sure they still have it, but I don't have a SKU for it. Right, we're going to do these 12. These loops are 12. All right. Okay, now as I'm straightening up the ribbon in the Bowdabra, I always make sure I'm pressing down on the opposite side so I don't pull the ribbon from the other side and make it lopsided. So, all right, now we're going to need a pipe cleaner. Actually, I think we'll just use more of this. I'm going to cut a longer piece. And I lift up. If you put your wire or pipe cleaner or whatever you're going to secure the bow with in first, you don't have to do this, but I always forget. So I lift the ribbon up off the bottom just a little, and then I slide whatever I'm using under. And since this was curled, it doesn't go straight through, but you can get it through there with a little bit of work. You know what? I'm gonna have to use my needle nose to pull it through. So don't do what I did there. Make sure you put it in before you start laying your bows or your ribbon in. There we go. So then you pull it through the top and cross to the opposite side through those holes and cinch down on it really tight, okay? So then you pull up, I hold it between my thumb and finger as I pull it out, and I pinch it together as tight as my hands will let me. I bring the other two pieces of my stems to the back and work it tight. And then you're going to twist. Now you always want to twist your bow to get the tightest twist. If you're just twisting the stems, it's not going to secure as tightly. So then you just go through and give a little fluff to your bows or to your loops. And then we're going to attach it to the frame. Okay. So I'm going to attach it to that inside inner rung because I want my bow to ride a little on the high side. And then you tie it off on the back. And I'll go in and trim everything down at the end and make sure all my pipe cleaners are tucked away and all of that. Just like that, okay? So now we'll go back and we'll finish the ends of all of our ribbon. So we'll dovetail some of them on these wider ones. And then we'll just do an angle cut like that on the shorter ones, or the thinner ones. I think one more right here. All right, then we just fluff. Then I curl some. Just wind them up in a little curl, give them a little pull at the end, and they'll lay like little ringlets. Like that. And this is why I like varying lengths of tails, because then you have different lengths of these beautiful little ringlets. They're all getting tangled up here. I actually think I'm going to trim this 4-inch down just a hair. It's a little on the long side. There we go. Much better. Whoops. That was a really bad cut. Okay. So at this point, you could totally stop, and it's a gorgeous wreath. If you wanted, then you can add other embellishments. I have some ornaments that came out of a Michael's grab bag. I took the top off, put a little dab of E6000, put it back on, and let it set up. That way, when I secure it to the wreath, it's not going to pull this off. So wherever you want to add these little jewels, just take your ties that are already on the frame and work your ornament down the stem and tie it off. If you had already cut these, you can add another stem or piece of floral wire and attach it directly to the frame. Or you could take this off completely and just hot glue them in. And I've got 5 of these, so we're just gonna randomly place them. one more. Put one down here. But always make sure you go back and straighten your ribbon. All right, I've got one more. Let me look here and see. Probably up there, I think. I like it back here. So just using the ties that I'm holding the mesh in with to secure these to the frame. There we go. All right, y'all. Done. How stinking cute. So you can show your pet a little bit of love this Valentine's Day, and then you can leave it up, you know, for the rest of the year.